Hello and welcome. Please visit us at wehavehopeindarktimes.blogspot.com for more biblical studies. Subscribe so you'll know when new videos are uploaded. Questions and comments are always welcome.
The Deceiver Deceived? Jesus' parables provide for us a most insightful look into the nature of the kingdom of God. At the time Jesus spoke these parables to the crowds, the people understood little of the concepts and truths he was teaching. Today we are blessed with a greater understanding as we have the explanation of the parables provided to us by his apostles who were eyewitnesses of Christ. See 1 Corinthians 2 verses 1 to 13, Colossians 1 verses 24 to 29, and 1 John 1 verses 1 to 3. Many of Christ's parables begin with the phrase, "The kingdom of God is like," or something similar. This should immediately alert us that he intends to provide some truth or detail specifically about the kingdom that will be of value to us. While the Old Testament certainly does speak of the future kingdom of God and of the Messiah, it needs to be understood that there were many things which were kept hidden and a mystery regarding what the Messiah would do at his first coming. It is true, we currently have a complete Bible, in which we can search between the Old and New Testaments to see how things played out and how the prophecies of the Old Testament were fulfilled. However, during the time Jesus walked the earth, there was still much mystery surrounding his activities. For example, a first-century Jew would not have had any idea that the Messiah would come the first time, suffer and die, be resurrected, leave the earth, and return thousands of years later. For the Jewish mind in Jesus' day, the Messiah would come once with overwhelming power and authority, would establish the kingdom of God on the earth, making Jerusalem its capital. The Jewish people would be established as the prime people of the earth. The mystery surrounding Christ's first coming, his meek attitude, his suffering, and death, was for a purpose. It certainly was not what the Jewish people had expected, nor was it what Satan expected. This may sound strange if you have never heard it before. Yet the Apostle Paul seems to clearly tell us this is the case at 1 Corinthians 2 verses 7 to 8. But we speak God's wisdom in a mystery, the wisdom which has been hidden, which God predestined before the ages to our glory, which none of the rulers of this age understood. For if they had understood, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. For many readers, the assumption will be immediately made that the rulers of this age were the human rulers who had arranged for and carried out Christ's execution. Indeed, it was humans who plotted and schemed to carry out the awful act. Yet behind the scenes, we see it was Satan who worked through these humans to accomplish this. John 13 verses 26 to 27. Jesus answered, "He is the one for whom I shall dip the piece of bread and give it to him." So when he had dipped the piece of bread, he took and gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, and after the piece of bread, Satan then entered into him. Therefore Jesus said to him, "What you do, do quickly." We see the Apostle Paul use the words, rulers, authorities, cosmic powers over this present darkness, and spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places at Ephesians 6 verse 12. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Please note, none of these are flesh and blood. In other words, these were not humans Paul was speaking of. The forces and influence of Satan can therefore also be called the rulers of this age and authorities. Satan did, after all, seem to have the authority to grant to any he chose authority over kingdoms of the earth. See Matthew 4 verses 8 to 10. We must ask ourselves the question in regards to Christ's crucifixion. Who stood to lose the most? In hindsight, we see that Christ's death and resurrection meant hope for all believers. It was through his atonement that sins could be forgiven. See Hebrews 9 verses 11 to 15. In hindsight as well, we see that Satan lost much of his power because of Christ's sacrifice and resurrection. Hebrews 2 verses 14 to 15. Therefore, since the children share in flesh and blood, he himself likewise also partook of the same, that through death he might render powerless him who had the power of death, that is, the devil, and might free those who through fear of death were subject to slavery all their lives. The great deceiver was deceived. Had Satan only known what the plan was in detail, had he known the Messiah would come the first time to suffer, die, and be resurrected, he would have ensured that Jesus would have lived a long, pleasant life and died of old age. Yet because this plan was kept hidden and a mystery, and you, who were dead in your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, God made alive together with him, having forgiven us all our trespasses, by canceling the record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands. This he set aside, nailing it to the cross. He disarmed the rulers and authorities and put them to open shame, by triumphing over them in him. Colossians 2 verses 13 to 15.
Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe so you'll know when new videos are uploaded.